as we discussed earlier, the pelvic floor really is influenced by what happens above as well as below. So it only makes sense then that posture can really affect what happens into the pelvic floor. So if we look at the traditional sitting posture of most people, we're rarely all the time upright and stacked this way. And so what we tend to do is really curl and round. It's a little bit harder to do during later stages of pregnancy, but we can still find a little bit more space, let's say on a couch, or we're on the floor even sometimes. So just be mindful of your posture and how that affects pressure. So if you find a posture where you're a little bit more slouched, I want you just to become aware of what's happening in your pelvis, in your belly, and in your rib cage. So seeing then, if you can take a nice breath in, and notice what you feel in the pelvis and the pelvic floor, in the belly and in the ribs. Exhale, let it go. Again, similar to what we did before, and just taking a few breaths in and out here, noticing what's happening bottom to top on both in breath and out breath. And then seeing if you can, on the exhale, connect to your pelvic floor and do a Kegel. So you can do your version of your Kegel, or you can do some of the Kegels that we've done before. So layer 2, closing front to back, stopping P, sits bones come together. Or layer 3, gently tucking the tail towards pubic bone without moving the pelvis. Take a nice breath in. Exhale, Kegel. And notice how difficult or easy that is for you. Noticing where it sits in the pelvic floor. Is it more front, more back, more sides? Inhale. I find a lot more pressure in the belly here, of course. When I exhale, it's a little bit easier to connect to my posterior pelvic floor, because that's where most of the pressure is. I can't really feel much going on the anterior part of my pelvic floor. And then seeing if you can find a more upright posture. So find your sits bones grounded on the seat. And you can have a little bit of back support, but I don't want you like leaning back as best you can. So here, just do your nice 360 breath. Notice what happens in the pelvic floor and your belly. So more balanced right away for me. Exhale, Kegel. And definitely feel a little bit stronger, and I feel more gentle co-activation of the transversus as I exhale, which is exactly what we want to have happen when we Kegel. When we Kegel, we want the pelvic floor to rise and the transversus to cinch a little bit and hug the middle. Let's do one more here. Breath in, breath out, Kegel. And just notice how that change in posture really does affect what's happening at the bottom in both pelvic floor and the abdominal wall. And so similarly to sitting posture, our standing posture can really affect the pressures into the pelvic floor, sometimes even more, just because the effects of gravity are even more on our body. So if we take the common prenatal posture of this anterior pelvic sway and this posterior thoracic sway, increased lumbar lordosis to help counterbalance the increasing abdominal weight, which is quite common, then what we can notice here in standing is just how much more pressure you can feel potentially in your belly, how much more pressure you can feel maybe in the posterior part of your pelvic floor or anterior depending, and also noticing how much your legs sort of have to work even though the joints can sometimes be locked. So just getting a sense of how your head feels here. Mine feels quite a bit heavier than normal. You can notice how your abdomen is working here. Most of the time when we stand in this posture, it gets sort of shut off, and so there's not a lot of work that's done here. So just getting awareness of if this is working or not. And then noticing again with your breath, what moves easily, what doesn't move easily, and where do the pressures go. So then trying, let's say, 2 Kegels here. So taking a nice breath in, find your ribs expanding. On the exhale, you're connecting pelvic floor, which is quite hard for me in this position. Take another breath in. And then exhale, connect layer 2 or layer 3 or your own one. And now we're going to stack our posture. So how we stack is not a tuck or an untuck of the tail, which is quite commonly suggested. I find it's more helpful to think about this forward back position. So if we think about the pelvis, it should be stacked on top of our femurs, our leg bones, so that then the line of gravity and force can go straight through the struts of the bones, down through the joint of the knee, and then into the ankle and a little bit of the midfoot. So if you can, try to horizontally shift your pelvis straight back so that it's stacked over your heels. And it's more of a weight shift rather than a pulling from your mid-back. So try not to pull yourself back from here, because that's going to create a lot of tension in through there, which can impact your SI joints and your low back. See if instead you can just shift your weight without really using too much muscular effort. Once you find your weight on your heels, it will feel like you're going to fall backwards. Seeing if you can keep the stack of pelvis on top of leg bones and just hinge at the front of your ankle joints, almost like you're ski jumping, so that then you have more contact of weight and distribution through your feet. So again, we're going from here, pelvis comes straight back. Again, it will feel like you're gonna fall backwards. Hinge at the ankle joints, at the front of your ankle joints. Imagine your Achilles heels going long into the floor. And then it will still sort of feel like you're leaning your rib cage back. So see if you can imagine like you're leaning to a little bit of a headwind, or again, you can feel like you're in this ski jump position, but not as extreme forwards that way. So here, your rib cage will just come along for the ride, so don't worry about shoulders forward, shoulders back. Just think about your head like a helium-filled balloon, and imagine it gently floating up towards the sky, front, back, and sides, not just the chin up or down, but the whole head gently floating. From here, tune in. What's going on in the pressures in your pelvis, pelvic floor, in your abdomen, in your chest, and how does your head feel? Does it feel as heavy as before or not? And then breathe. Breathe into your rib cage. Expand the back sides of the ribs. Notice what happens to the pressure in the belly and the pelvic floor as you breathe in. Exhale, just let it go. No Kegel here. Inhale again, ribs. And then exhale, see if you can Kegel here. Now, it is important to note that in standing versus laying down, your pelvic floor strength will feel slightly less in standing because you are now in gravity. Not only do you have to lift all of your organs and baby against the weight of gravity, but also your body has to maintain you upright and provide more central stability on a subconscious level. So as long as you're imagining the exact same things as you were before as when we were laying down, that's fine. Just know that it will feel slightly less and try not to grip again. So let it be small, subtle, and soft. And just standing here, also notice what's happening to the abdominal wall at rest. To me, it feels like I'm getting a little bit more of a reflexive hug and things are just on and stacked a little bit easier. So in this way, just noticing throughout your day, do you find yourself here? Do you find yourself here? And it's fine to move positions, which is actually quite good. However, if you are always finding yourself here, leaning on the counter, brushing your teeth, cooking dinner, those types of things, see if you can just find your stack. So see if you can find your independence from props. Posteriorly transfer your weight so that your pelvis is stacked on top of your leg bones, on top of your heels. Hinge a little bit at the front of the ankle joints and let your head float. In this way, even if you're only here for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, maybe you can do about 10 breaths here, would be a really good exercise. Maybe just brush your teeth in the stack position for about a minute. That's gonna be really great for you. So the more you do throughout the day and find your stack, the more it's gonna add up over time, and you're just rewiring your brain a little bit that this is where you prefer to be to help support you a little bit better and to help the core engage more reflexively throughout the day.